Hey all, welcome to a quick overview of the incomplete guidelines and some of the things for this subcommittee to consider when developing resources, expectations, or even policy recommendations for the incomplete. So as you know, one of the goals of the district's SBG committee is to focus on products or policies that could systematically support our teachers, students, and admin district-wide in the area of standards-based grading and other effective grading practices. The incomplete guideline specifically, your subcommittee's essential priority, is probably the most requested from teachers, but also one of the more challenging concepts to consider, especially in practice. Right? In fact, there was actually an SBG committee meeting at the beginning of this school year. If this is 2.0, I guess we'll call that version 1.5, where this was our main focus. We spent 3 hours just talking about the incomplete guidelines and nothing else, and we still couldn't completely tackle it. But that's not to say it's impossible. And I think that something like this needs the attention of a group of thoughtful and innovative grading experts like yourselves to really tackle it. So just so we're all on the same page, let me just quickly go over what we mean by the incomplete. So if a student's missing work, they would receive an incomplete as opposed to a 0, right? This helps us delineate between a 0, which is supposed to represent no or very minimal proficiency, and an incomplete, which is more of a mystery, right? We don't know where you are on this particular topic without the correct evidence. You might be a 0, you might be a 2, you might even be a 4, but until you can prove it to me, right, you don't get credit for that assignment. And then, and here's the kicker, if a student is missing a certain amount or type of work, their whole grade would be rendered as an incomplete until they make up that missing work. But what's the criteria? How do we decide whether a student's whole grade for a course is going to be an incomplete? And I think that's the big question here. As the team begins to delve into this, here are just some quick considerations. What's the purpose? What's our why behind creating these incomplete guidelines? I think that'll help with the buy-in when we communicate that with teachers and students and parents. What qualifies a student for receiving an incomplete, right? What's that threshold, right? Is it the same for every department, every course? I feel like, maybe in an art course where it's more project-based, right? That might look different than in a math course. In terms of determining whether a whole grade is incomplete, are we looking at, quantity, right? The threshold of missing assignments. Are we looking at quality, right? Are these assignments, should they be attached to, the essential content or the essential standards? I think that's what Shimmer would recommend in this area. How is the incomplete reported and communicated? Is that something we have to work on with Synergy to make sure we can do that? This is a good one. What happens at the end of the semester if a student still has an incomplete? And then how does that incomplete impact eligibility? How does the incomplete impact policies and practices that we already have in place, right? So these are all the things that we can kind of consider when looking into this topic. We went over this during the whole group presentation, but just remember the majority of the brainstorming and work being done will be in these 2-week intervals in between the meetings. So we're calling the next 2 weeks between this meeting and next, stage 1, right? Research and feedback. And here are some questions that you may want to consider when delving into the research, right? First, what does the research say? And what do the SBG experts say, right? We know we have these, grading gurus, Tom Shimmer, Gusky, Reeves, Marzano, there's more, right? They have books, articles, websites on effective grading practices. Do they have anything specifically about this topic, right? Are there any case studies that we can look into? Right? Any local schools that are full SBG or maybe adopting particular practices of effective grading and reporting, right? How did they get there, right? How do they handle this topic? Stevenson High School, right? Some of us have visited that school. That's a high school in Illinois. That's kind of the birthplace of PLCs. They've been doing SBG for, over 2 decades at this point. How do they handle this situation? And who do we need to reach out to in our circle? Right? Who are the key players that can provide the insight and the feedback that can kind of guide our work here? So what you guys are going to do, you're going to gather this info, you're going to determine what you believe is relevant, and then you're going to present it to the whole group next meeting. How you present is up to you. If you want to do a PowerPoint slide or just, kind of talk it out, totally fine. Just don't exceed that 7 minutes because we do want to save some time to solicit feedback from your peers. That will hopefully guide the next 2 weeks of work that you'll be doing with your subcommittee. And that's it for now. Thanks for watching this video, and thanks again for being a part of this committee. At this point, you should begin these conversations, ask the real questions, and figure out how your team maybe will answer them. And as always, feel free to reach out to the committee leads with any questions you may still have. All right, thanks. Bye.